Grave of the Fireflies. Normally, films from Studio Ghibli are whimsical, fantastical tales with fairy tale endings. This one is a tragedy that begins with its protagonist dying. That's never a good sign. The story is told in flashback, set in the final months of World War II. It follows two children, Seita and his little sister Setsuko, trying to survive after American firebombing destroys their city. Their mother dies in the attack, though Seita hides this painful truth from Setsuko. Their only comfort is a small metal tin filled with fruit drops, which Setsuko guards fiercely. It is the last sweet reminder of their home, of hope and normalcy. With their father away at war as a sailor, they move in with their aunt, who quickly becomes resentful, treating them less like family and more like burdens, stealing precious food. Eventually, pushed out by hunger and pride, Seita takes Setsuko and runs. They move into an abandoned bomb shelter, a dark cave carved into the side of a hill. To Setsuko, it becomes a magical place. They catch fireflies to light their little world. By morning, all the fireflies are dead. Setsuko buries the fireflies and reveals that she knows Mother is dead. She cries, looks at the grave, and asks the question no one can answer. Why did they die so soon? Their situation collapses entirely when Seita finds out that Japan has unconditionally surrendered and their father is likely lost to the sea. And then their food runs out. Seita, in desperation, steals crops and breaks into houses during air raids. He's beaten, arrested, and let go by an understanding policeman. But by then, Setsuko is already fading. Seita gathers what little money is left and returns with food, only to find Setsuko hallucinating and too weak to swallow. She dies right there in the shelter as her brother tries to feed her the final fruit drops. Seita cremates her himself, placing her ashes in the same candy tin she so cherished. We then flash forward to where we began. Seita's death at the train station. Another starving child in a country full of them. The precious tin can, which meant the world to them and now contains the earthly remains of Setsuko, is thrown away like trash by a station guard. Setsuko and Seita reunites in the afterlife, and their spirits sit together on a hill overlooking modern-day Kobe, watching a world that moved on without them. The Fly. What is the worst thing that can happen when you have invented teleportation? A bug. Literally. The Fly is a cult classic body horror film. Brilliant scientist Seth Brundle invents the telepod, a device for instantaneous travel. It's revolutionary, except for one problem. When he tries living creatures, the machine mangles them into bloody inside-out horrors. Luckily, he meets the beautiful journalist Ronnie, and they fall in love. Inspired, Seth reprograms the telepods to understand organic tissue. And it works. The baboon didn't end up like a blood cake, and in a moment of arrogance and jealousy, he teleports himself without realizing a common housefly is in the pod with him. At first, everything seems fine. Better, even. Seth gains strength, stamina, and confidence, convinced the machine has purified him, but strange hairs appear on his back. His temper worsens and his body starts to change. Baffled, he checks the computer and it reveals the horrifying truth. The computer, confused by the two different organisms, merged their DNA when teleporting them, creating a new, singular entity, the Brundlefly. Seth starts vomiting acid to eat, crawling across ceilings, and losing what's left of his mind. Ronnie watches, helpless, as the man she loved dissolves before her. Then, she discovers she's pregnant. She is having nightmares of giving birth to a giant maggot. So she calls the anti-baby doctor for help. In desperation, Seth abducts her, begging her to keep the child, his last fragment of humanity. But he's mutating faster now. His jaw falls off, and the human skin peels away. And underneath is something else. His final plan is horrifying. He wants to fuse himself, Ronnie, and their unborn child into one perfect being. It fails, and he ends up fused with the telepod itself, broken, twisted, and screeching, The Brundlefly drags itself toward Ronnie and directs her gun at its head, begging for death. She hesitates, then pulls the trigger. The Hunt. The Hunt is one of the greatest films ever made in Denmark, and maybe Mads Mikkelsen's finest performance. It's a story about how fast a community can turn on one of its own, and how a single misunderstanding can stain a man forever. Lucas is a gentle, soft-spoken kindergarten worker trying to rebuild his life after a divorce. He's reconnecting with his teenage son, starting a new relationship, and for once, things finally seem to be improving. His closest friend, Theo, is a warm, loud, and loyal guy. He knows Lucas so well, he boasts that he can look into his eyes and always know if he is lying. This is important, so remember this. Anyways, their families spend holidays together, and Theo's daughter, Clara, adores Lucas. She wanders to his house when her parents argue. She walks his dog and she feels safe with him. But one day in kindergarten, Clara feels rejected. She gives Lucas a small handmade gift and an innocent kiss, and Lucas gently sets a boundary. Hurt and confused, she repeats a sexual phrase she overheard from her brother and his friends, a phrase she doesn't understand, and she directs it at Lucas. The headmistress panics. An unofficial expert interviews Clara with leading, suggestive questions, and suddenly her confused words become an accusation. Within days, Lucas is treated as a predator, though no one can tell him what he supposedly did. Other children suddenly remember things, and all of them mentions Lucas's basement. Lucas doesn't have a basement. Clara tries to take it back repeatedly. She tells the adults nothing happened. She doesn't understand why she can't see Lucas anymore, or why his dog is suddenly gone. But the adults repeat the film's most chilling line: children don't lie. Not about this. Except sometimes they do. And sometimes it destroys people. The small town descends into collective hysteria. Lucas is ostracized, losing his job, his friends, his new girlfriend, and his dignity. The townspeople won't even look at him. Former acquaintances beat him in a supermarket. His son is bullied, and his dog is killed. For Theo, this is equally torture. This is his daughter, but it's also his best friend. The culmination happens on Christmas Eve, when Lucas confronts Theo in church, and like a Renaissance painting, grabs his face with both hands and pleading, "Look into my eyes. What do you see? You see nothing." There is nothing. Later that night, when Theo tucks Clara in, she quietly repeats the truth. Lucas never did anything. Theo cries. Lucas is eventually cleared, officially. A year later, his life looks repaired from the outside. He is out hunting with the men who once shunned him. Life seems normal again, and yet the smiles are still a bit off. Then, a gunshot cracks through the trees. A bullet whizzes past Lucas's head. The unknown shooter, hidden by the sun, slips away. The accusation is gone on paper, but in someone's mind, it never died. And Lucas still has to live with the consequences forever. Life is Beautiful. Life is Beautiful is an Italian period comedy set partly in a Nazi concentration camp during World War II. Doesn't sound that fun, huh? Well, it is. But it's also utterly heartbreaking. The film follows Guido, a Jewish waiter whose infectious love for life wins over his principessa, Dora. Through charm, wit, and sheer determination, he woos the wealthy schoolteacher with elaborate stunts, culminating in him stealing her away from her own engagement party on a horse named Robin Hood. They marry, have a son, Joshua, and build a beautiful life together. Then the comedy ends, kind of. In 1943, Italy dips out of the war, and Nazi Germany occupies northern Italy. Under Mussolini, Italian Jews were relatively safe, but now the Holocaust has arrived in Italy. Guido, his uncle, and Joshua are forced onto a train bound for a concentration camp. Dora, though not Jewish, insists on joining them voluntarily to stay with her family. Upon arrival, men and women are separated, and she never sees them again during imprisonment. Inside the camp, Guido quickly understands the horror surrounding them. But Joshua doesn't. And this is where the film's brilliance and tragedy unfolds. To shield his son, Guido invents an elaborate game. If Joshua follows the rules, no crying, no complaining, no getting caught, he'll earn points. Whoever reaches 1,000 points wins a real tank. Guido uses every ounce of charm, wit, and self-sacrifice to sustain the illusion. He hides Joshua during roll calls and raids and sneaks him food. At one point, he even hijacks the camp loudspeakers to send romantic messages to Dora, assuring her they're both safe. As the Allies approach, Guido gives his son one final instruction: hide until the game is over. Then, while searching for Dora, he's captured. As soldiers march him toward execution, he passes Joshua's hiding spot one last time. Guido forces a smile, winks, and comically marches on, still playing the game. It's as if Mr. Bean went to a concentration camp and the boy laughs at his father's silly antics. Seconds later, Guido is shot dead in an alley. The next morning, Joshua emerges from hiding just as Allied tanks arrive. He rides on one, believing he's won the prize. Later, he reunites with his mother, overjoyed, yet still unaware of the price his father paid. The film ends with the now adult Joshua narrating, thanking his father for his final gift: life. The Wrestler. In the movie The Wrestler, the protagonist, Randy the Ram Robinson, is a relic from a different time. A professional wrestler clinging to the frayed glory of his 1980s heyday. He was a superstar once, with big hair, big muscles, and even bigger crowds. But decades later, the cheers have vanished. Now, he wrestles in tiny gymnasiums for pocket change, living in a trailer park and working a soul-crushing part-time job behind a supermarket deli counter under a boss who mocks him. As a regular at a strip club, Randy befriends Cassidy, a stripper who, like him, is past her prime. They enjoy each other's company, but he's clearly more romantically invested than she is. After winning a local match, Randy agrees to a 20-year anniversary rematch with his old rival, the Ayatollah, hoping to reclaim some of his former glory. He trains hard and injects steroids. But after a brutal hardcore match, he suffers a near-fatal heart attack. Doctors tell him plainly, stop wrestling or die. And he tries. He retires, works full-time behind the deli counter, and reaches out to his estranged daughter, Stephanie. For a brief moment, it looks like he might build himself a real life. But, as always, he blows it. After yet another rejection from Cassidy, Randy spirals into a night of drugs and sex. This self-destructive binge costs him his second chance with his daughter when he misses their dinner the next evening. At work, when a customer recognizes him, Randy snaps. He slices his hand open on the meat slicer, curses everyone out, and storms out. With nothing left, he decides to return to the ring for one last match. Cassidy begs him not to. His heart won't survive it. But Randy tells her the ring is the only place he belongs. During the match, chest pain starts to hit him. The Ayatollah urges him to end it. Randy refuses, and he climbs the top rope for his finishing move. He looks down and sees Cassidy has left the arena. She couldn't watch him choose death, but the crowd chants his name. Randy looks out, tears in his eyes, and leaps. We never see him land as the screen cuts to black, sacrificing his life for one final moment of glory and connection. Mystic River. Mystic River is a mystery thriller where people never escape the trauma of the past, and the darkest horrors are committed by the people closest to you. The darkness begins in 1975, when three childhood friends, Jimmy, Sean, and Dave, are playing on a Boston street. Out of nowhere, two predators posing as cops abduct Dave. He's held and assaulted for 4 days before escaping. The trauma shatters him, and 25 years later, that trauma sets the stage for tragedy. When Jimmy's teenage daughter, Katie, is murdered, everything begins to unravel. Jimmy, now an ex-con semi-mobster, is devastated. He launches his illegitimate investigation, desperate for justice. Sean, now a detective, works the official case. And Dave returns home the night of the murder, covered in blood, claiming he killed a mugger. Dave's sudden erratic behavior, combined with his wife Celeste's growing fear, sets the dominoes in motion. Celeste confides in Jimmy, her cousin's husband. Jimmy, fueled by grief, rage, and a lifetime of violence, only needs the slightest push. Dave is lured to a bar. Jimmy and his associates press him for a confession. Dave admits to killing someone that night, but it was a child molester, not Katie. Jimmy and his associates doesn't believe him. Under pressure, Dave gives a false confession. Jimmy stabs him to death and dumps the body into the Mystic River. Meanwhile, Sean cracks the case. The real killer wasn't Dave. It was two local teenagers. One of them was the younger brother of Katie's boyfriend. The next morning, Sean tells Jimmy the truth. And Jimmy just says, "If only you'd been a little faster." Jimmy's wife Annabeth frames the killing as an act of strength, telling him he did what a king must do, cementing their moral decay. During a neighborhood parade, Sean locks eyes with Jimmy and makes a finger gun gesture, silently promising that this story isn't over. And Jimmy just shrugs. Dinosaurs. Dinosaurs was a family-friendly TV sitcom about the Sinclair family. Goofy puppet dinosaurs, harmless jokes, and episodes about homework, dating, and baby Sinclair, smashing Earl with frying pans. It aired on Friday nights. The parents trusted it, and the kids loved it. And then it got canceled, and the writers left no survivors. It begins with something very small, a missing beetle. Every year, a species called the bunch beetles migrates through Pangaea to eat the overgrown cider poppy plants. But this year, they don't appear. The reason? The Wisaiso Corporation, the unapologetically greedy, profit-obsessed company, has built a new wax fruit factory right over the beetles' breeding grounds. With no beetles, the plants begin to spread uncontrollably across the continent. Earl Sinclair, the well-meaning but clueless father, works for this conglomerate, and together they continue to make every bad environmental decision possible. First, they release a chemical to destroy the cider poppies, and they end up killing every plant on Earth in the process. His boss then decides that they need rain, and rain comes from clouds, and clouds come from volcanoes, obviously. So they begin bombing volcanoes to force the weather to cooperate. Instead, they blanket the entire planet in ash, blocking out the sun. Temperatures plummet, and snow begins to fall. And so, the Ice Age begins. Inside the boardroom, Wisaiso celebrates record profits on heaters, blankets, and hot cocoa mix. Outside, the world quietly dies. The final scene is haunting. Earl apologizes to his family for the mistakes he has made, and his children ask him what will happen next. Earl tries to reassure them that dinosaurs have survived for more than 150 million years. It's not like we're just going to disappear, right? Right? And that is the last we hear of the Sinclairs. The news anchor delivers one last broadcast, voice trembling as he tells us goodnight and goodbye before the screen goes dark. A family sitcom ending with the extinction of its entire cast. Donnie Darko. This cult classic science fiction movie begins on October 2nd, 1988. Donnie is a troubled teenager who one night sleepwalks out of his house and meets Frank, a monstrous 6-foot-tall rabbit. Frank tells him the world will end in 28 days. The next morning, Donnie wakes up on a golf course. Back home, he learns a jet engine has mysteriously crashed into his bedroom. If he hadn't sleepwalked, he'd be dead. Over the next 28 days, Frank becomes Donnie's eerie guide, pushing him to flood his school, burn down a pedo house, and fixating his attention on cryptic time travel theories written by a mysterious old woman nicknamed Grandma Death. Unknowingly, Donnie is acting as a pawn in a larger paradoxical plan to fix a fractured timeline. Oh, and he finds out that Frank isn't actually a rabbit. He's a teen in a Halloween costume with a bleeding eye. Meanwhile, Donnie has been dating Gretchen, a new girl with a traumatic past, and for a moment, life almost feels normal, despite Frank and his time travel shenanigans. On Halloween night, exactly 28 days after the movie's beginning, tragedy strikes. Bullies ambush Donnie and Gretchen outside Grandma Death's house, and Gretchen is run over and killed by a car driven by Frank, a teen in a rabbit costume. Donnie shoots him in the eye, fulfilling his visions. In the climax, Donnie drives to a ridge as a vortex forms over town. He watches the plane carrying his mother and sister get caught in the temporal rip. The jet engine tears off and is sent back in time, resetting the timeline. And then, Donnie wakes up in his bed on the same night the movie started, October 2nd. He recognizes the danger, accepts his fate, and laughs softly as the jet engine crashes into his room, killing him instantly. In the morning, everyone wakes with a strange sense of déjà vu. Gretchen rides by, not knowing Donnie, but somehow feeling she should. He dies so others can live. A quiet, paradoxical hero, unremembered but essential. Alright, that was some of the darkest endings in fiction. Let me know in the comments which ending you think is the darkest and why. There will be more, so stay tuned. And as always, thanks for watching. Cheers.